the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. Hour number 2 here on the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Always love to have you part of the show. If you want to chime in and text us on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. That's how you can be a part of the show. And, let us know what's on your mind. Agree or disagree with what we've discussed last hour. Great conversation with Utah State women's volleyball coach Rob Nielsen. Boy, Utah State's lucky to have him as a coach. They've got great coaches all over the place right now. Yeah, they do. I think pretty much every single sport you can think of that they sponsor, they've got great coaches. Manny Martins, again with Manny and Rob, like they're both sticking around. They got Manny with an extension. I imagine they'll be keeping Rob Nielsen around with an extension, unless I missed one and they already signed him to one. But these are guys who are sticking around with Utah State and building elite contending programs year after year after year. Volleyball, last year was the first time in 3 years they hadn't hoisted some kind of championship trophy. Soccer, they're on back-to-back Mtn West tournament championships. And, you've got other, of course, Jared Calhoun, keeping Utah State as a contender, even with all the, turnover that he has to deal with in men's basketball. And, he's sticking around and continuing to build a contending team in a very tough Mtn West. And then, you've got some coaches who I think are good coaches that are looking to rebuild. Wes Brooks, he's got a task in front of him, but I think he's doing a really good job. You look at his recruiting class this year, looking more and more like this could actually finally be the year that they managed to turn things around, bring in a good recruiting class. And then Bronco Mendenhall, we've talked plenty about him and how many coaches think the world of him and how many coaches are basically just assuming Utah State is just going to turn it around. They're already planning on it. It's like they're going to turn it around. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, Broncos, it's not if, it's just when. Yeah, it's when, not if. So, just a bunch of fantastic coaches here. And, of course, Rob, he's got more hardware than I'll do, at least at Utah State. So we'll see if he can keep ahead of all the rest with any hardware that they add this year. Yeah. But looking ahead for Utah State football, looking at what Bronco Mendenhall's got in front of him for turning that football program around, I've shamelessly promoted my opponent preview series on Cache Valley Daily and wanted to put that on air, talk about each of these opponents. We've got, I think, 12 weekdays over the next couple of weeks before we get to game week. So I figured we'd take some time each day up until August 22nd to just look over, just take one team that Utah State is facing. Of the 12 regular season games that we know are going to happen, who knows, maybe they play a 13th with the bowl game, or who knows, maybe they play 14 if they play in the conference title game. But the 12 games that we know are going to happen, and just do a preview, talk about the opponent, who they've got coming back, kind of where are they sitting in the rankings, what are the expectations for those teams. And heck, you can follow along because pretty much every day I'll have already published the written preview. And so you can see some of the things that I've already picked up on. So we start with UTEP. It's your season opener, August 30th, Merlin Olsen Field, 5:30. It's on CBS Sports Network. And you hear it here on KVNU, or on the radio, not necessarily here, but a couple studios down. Yeah. You got in our family of radio stations. Yeah, you got the KVNU Aggie Game Day, Stockton Jukes, JD Walker. You'll be able to hear them 2 hour. It's 2 hours or an hour and a half. I suddenly can't remember. I think generally they try to go for 2 hours. Yeah, I thought it was 2 hours, then like 1 hour or 45 minutes or something like that for basketball. For basketball. Mm-hmm. I couldn't remember their schedule. But then again, just some other quick hit info. They got a second-year head coach, Scotty Walden. They went 3-9 last year. They were not a good team last year.
They ranked in the bottom 15 in points per game. They ranked in the bottom 20 in points allowed per game. But the thing is, I think there's a decent amount of optimism under Scotty Walden. I think even after last season, they went 3-9 because they fired the previous coach after he went 3-9. But then, you get Walden, he comes in, they go 3-9, and yet there's optimism coming into this next season. Like, there are people who are believing that UTEP is going to go to a bowl game this year. You look at guys that are covering mid-major, like they're group of 6. There are a lot who are kind of these UTEP believers.
Well, I mean, Vegas line and several different publications put their win-loss over-under at 5.5 wins.
Yeah.
So they're right there on the fringe of being bowl eligible.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is a team that hasn't won more than 7 games since 2005. The very first year they were in Conference USA. The best they won 8 games in 2005. They also won 8 games in 2004. They were in the WAC in 2004, actually, but they moved to Conference USA. They won 8 games that first year, and they haven't done that since. They got 7 wins in 2021. They went to a bowl game. They won 7 games in 2014, went to a bowl game. This is a program that, and they haven't won any of those bowl games. In fact, they haven't won a bowl game since the 60s. So this is a program that has been pretty consistently mediocre or bad. They're on back-to-back 3-win seasons. They were a 5-win team in 2022, and they've only gotten worse since then. They had a pair of 1-win seasons in the late 2010s. That's kind of the state of UTEP. Is there a program that's been mediocre or bad pretty much every year for 20 years? And yet, there's some hope for this upcoming season. I don't know if there's enough quite to justify the hope, but they're okay in returning production. Eric, they rank 73rd, which is technically the bottom half, but like barely on the bottom half.
I'm in the middle of the pack.
Yeah. So, and they've got some key guys returning. They return, their quarterback. They return some good players in the wide receiver room. They brought in a pretty solid transfer running back. They're returning a few decent defensive players. Defensive is actually a place where they're kind of iffy because they had some promising freshmen on the defense, and then they all transferred. So they have a few players on defense you can keep an eye out for. Interestingly enough, they have a transfer, Micah Davey, who is a transfer from another Utah State opponent, McNeese. He came from FCS, and he's going to UTEP. That was kind of interesting. Another random interesting fact, a former Utah State player is on UTEP. Can you guess who?
A former Utah State player playing for UTEP this season.
Yeah, played from last year. I'll give you a hint. He scored points for the Aggies.
I'm blanking right now. Wide receiver.
No.
A kicker?
Yes.
Oh, yes. And I can't think of his name.
Oh, you got it close enough. It was Tanner Cragen.
Tanner.
Tanner
Cragen.
Pretty much had it there with the kicker. So yeah, Tanner Cragen. I don't know if he's going to start, but like with what he did at Utah State last season, I would kind of expect him to be the kicker for them. He was a solid kicker for the Aggies last year. But yeah, the guys to watch for, I think, for the most part on this team, a lot of them on offense. They got Skylar Locklear. Now, this is something I mentioned the other day where you have Malachi Nelson, former number 1 overall recruit like 3 high school classes ago. He was at USC, lost the job to Miller Moss, trying to be the successor to Caleb Williams. Then he goes to Boise State, loses that job to, why am I forgetting his name? Maddox Madsen.
Maddox Madsen.
Sorry. That made it sound like that was his title. I just forgot his name for 3 seconds. He lost the job to Maddox Madsen. Now he's at UTEP. They managed to recruit him. They sold him on the vision of coming in and fighting for the job. But by all the reports I've read, Skylar Locklear is still taking those first-team reps in fall camp. Or at least throughout spring, heading into fall camp, Locklear is still your number 1 quarterback. He was kind of their main guy through last year. A bit of a runner. I think he had, if you exclude sacks, I think he had 300 yards exactly in rushing yards. Sack-adjusted rushing yards. Which is like, he can run, but you're like not terrified of him running. So there's kind of that. And then as a passer, he was okay. Like, he needs to take some pretty big step forwards if he's going to make anyone afraid of him. But the thing is, he also returns like two of his top receivers, Kenny Odom and Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas, who is also a pretty dynamic punt returner. And they also bring back, I think, most of their offensive line. I think 3 starters, if I remember correctly. And then again, they bring in a pretty solid transfer running back from Charlotte. I need to see if I can pronounce his name. Hashawn Wilson, where he was the backup, or he was like splitting carries, but he was the more efficient one. He averaged like 6 yards per carry. The other guy averaged like 4.5. But the other guy got more carries. So Wilson was a more efficient back. Now he's coming to likely take the starting job at UTEP. So this could be an interesting offense where I think the offense can take step forwards. Mind you, they were bad last year. But if they take steps forward, they can be a good offense. And enough of a test, I think it's a good week 1 test for the Aggies. Because they can shut down UTEP. They could very well do that. And it's not going to be like they're playing an FCS team where it's going to be the super easy and you're not really sure if they're even any good. You're not sure if you've even learned anything. UTEP can be good enough, but not necessarily too good for the Aggies in week 1, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it's a really good week 1 test for Utah State. A team that has struggled historically, certainly struggled last year, but a team that looks like they're trying to get a little bit more serious about football and try to be a better program. Certainly they want to be on a better trajectory when they join the Mtn West next year. So they would love nothing more than to beat up on one of the exiting Mtn West teams, to show the rest of their future Mtn West brethren, look what we can do. Look what we did to one of those traitors that are leaving you. Yeah. But for Utah State, this is that first chance for all of us to see what this team is really made of. And while UTEP is maybe a team that's slightly improving, they've still got a ways to go. Granted, you could probably say that about Utah State as well. But I think last year was a team that was honestly a few plays away from being a bowl team. And so I think that roster has greatly changed this year from last year. But still, there's a coaching staff that knows what they're doing. They know what it takes. There are a lot of players who want to do better than what they did last year, whether they were in an Aggie uniform or somewhere else. So this is a good early test for Utah State to see, is this program really going to be something this year? And to do that against a team that you should, in normal circumstances, be able to beat by a couple of touchdowns. I don't know if the margin is going to be that big, but I think this will be a good test for Utah State. Opportunity to win, but a team that will still pose a bit of a challenge for the Aggies.
Yeah, this is a game that you're okay winning by, 1 score or 10 points or something like that. The ideal would be to be able to blow them out, because in a good year for Utah State, this is an opponent you beat by 14, 21. If you're having a great day, you beat them by 4+ touchdowns. It's the kind of team Jordan Love would hang 63 on.
Yes.
But Utah State isn't necessarily going to be that next year. And really, I think the biggest thing is it's going to be a testament of which coach manages to rebuild from a bad year last year. Scotty Walden obviously has his own team. Broncos coming into the Aggies, so he's a new coach. But Scotty Walden, he's got more continuity than Utah State does. He's got more returning starters. He's got some decent transfers who have some decent production at previous places. Broncos brought in a lot of unknown guys, especially on offense. On defense, he's brought in more known quantities. But UTEP went 3-9 last year. Utah State went 4-8. As far as record, these two teams were pretty comparable. And I think you mentioned Utah State being a few plays away from having a couple more wins. UTEP was kind of that way too, to some degree. They had some close losses as well. So these are two teams that are basically like, both teams are going into this one expecting, hey, the other team is bad, so we should be able to beat them. It's kind of like with Utah State and Temple last year. Both sides were like, hey, this opponent's not nearly as good as the ones we've been getting beat up on. Because Utah State was coming off of playing Utah and USC and obviously some very tough games. They get to Temple and they're like, okay, finally, it's an opponent that we can probably beat. And then they lose. This is a bit different because it's the first game, but both teams looking to make a bowl game, looking to rebound, or, in Utah State's case, they're looking to rebound. In terms of UTEP, they're trying to build up. They're trying to build up into something they haven't been for a while, or really almost ever. UTEP's not really been a good football program, at least not in anywhere close to the modern era. So both teams are looking at this as a winnable game, but Utah State really should be the team to win. They're the team with better history. They've got better coaches, better resources, and a better program. They should be able to come out with a win. And they're at home. And this is going to be a game where the fans are going to be out. It's going to be, typically the higher attended games tend to be early on. There's a lot of hope for the season. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to see this team. I mean, at least I'm hoping that's the attitude that the community takes, because there's one line of thinking where they don't show up because they don't know the team. And when there's worries about who the team is, because we see this in basketball, where for years, like, it would take like half a season for the fans to become interested and show up. It happened a lot during the Craig Smith and Ryan Odom years. Like, we're not sure about this team. So then finally they got going during conference play and they'd be selling out all over the place. Does that happen in football? I would hope not. I would hope not. I would hope that they don't look at this team and be like, I'm going to wait. I would hope that, and I've seen this from previous seasons, they come out and show up for week one because they want to see this team. And I think that's going to be the case. And that's why I think that's the more likely case. That's why I think that energy is going to be high. You're going to be hopefully close to cracking 20,000 at Merlin Olsen Field, and being able to bring that energy, get the herd in there. I know it's right before school starts, so hopefully the herd's able to be there in full force, and that can give you more energy and help boost this team that isn't going to be fully fleshed out. They're not going to be fully honed yet, but get them enough energy to get them to play well enough that they can come away with a win. Because if you lose this game, then you're already, after week one, you're on a knife's edge as to whether or not you're going to go bowling.
Right.
If you win
these winnable games, they have to be able to get them.
Yeah, they've got 6, maybe 7 winnable games, and they can't afford to be dropping them, especially early in the season, and especially when you've got games against Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Air Force, like right after. You can't be dropping your most winnable game in your first 4 games. So it makes UTEP a weirdly critical game, but it is also arguably their most winnable, outside of maybe Nevada, or depending on what you think of New Mexico. UTEP was one of the lower rated teams on Utah State's schedule, so they should be beating them. But it is, again, a weirdly important game. For it being the first game of the season, it has, in my opinion, a weird amount of importance in that losing it is almost catastrophic to your bowl hopes. Not mathematically, but when you look at the rest of the season, if you can't win that game, what of these other games are you expecting to win?
Right. That means you have to go out and steal a win from a game, from an opponent that otherwise would have been unlikely for you able to get a victory there. But, yeah, so interesting look at UTEP, the game preview. The opponent preview is up on CashValleyDaily.com if you want to read a little bit more about Utah State's opener against the UTEP Miners coming up later this month, at the end of the month. Quick time out here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, a couple of other things to get into for Utah State and the conference. By the way, this just happening this afternoon. Report that the departing Mtn West schools, Colorado State, Boise State, and Utah State, have now filed an additional lawsuit against the conference, having to do with withholding money from these teams and calling fraud for what they did in adding Grand Canyon and pushing them on to the conference at the last minute. So we'll get into some more of those details coming up on the other side of this timeout here on the Full Court Press.
Make it 5 years in a row. Advanced Heating and AC is honored to be named gold medalist for the best of Northern Utah in the AC HVAC category. They thank you for your support and vote of confidence in their company. You have many choices when it comes to your home's heating and air conditioning system. Make sure you choose the 5-time gold medal winning company, Advanced Heating and AC. Call 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI, online at advancedheating-ac.com.
It's that time of the year. Fresh zucchini is everywhere. And at Old Grist Mill, they're baking it into the perfect special. The Old Grist Mill is making warm, fresh, baked zucchini bread, just like Grandma used to make. Simple ingredients and fresh zucchini to create moist, flavorful bread the old-fashioned way. It's the taste of the season. Stop by South Logan, or Smithville to grab a loaf for $2 before it's gone. And don't forget, Old Grist Mill makes all your favorite fresh bread, scones, muffins, and now serving breakfast in Logan and Smithville. Dine in, take out, curbside, or catering. Old Grist Mill is here for you.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, Feel the Love is more than just heating and cooling. It means giving back. 5 complete HVAC systems will be donated to a deserving person or family. Feel the love and nominate that person or family in need at mtnvalleyhvac.com. Nominate prior to September 1st, 2025. See website for all details.
Interviews, analysis, and a little bit of fun mixed in. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Some breaking news. It's not about conference realignment, so I'm not going to play that breaking news liner.
Oh, come on. We also got a couple texts to get to, but let's get to this breaking news first.
Yeah, this is being reported by Matt Baker in The Athletic. But Utah State, Colorado State, Boise State are they've added a new lawsuit against the Mtn West, saying that the conference has misled them about a covert plan to speed up the addition of Grand Canyon as a conference member, and also alleging that a number of things. It's a 37-page filing. It also specifically mentions Gloria Nevarez as a defendant, but it says the league and commissioner, quote, intentionally and fraudulently, close quote, deprived the schools of their membership rights and caused millions of dollars in harm while, quote, impacting the rights and opportunities of plaintiffs' student athletes for their last year in the conference, close quote. Says schools are now seeking damages in their latest complaint. Part of it is that millions of dollars include the college football playoff money earned through Boise State's appearance in the field this last season. Travel reimbursements have not been paid. NCAA payments for financial aid, academic programs, athlete welfare. There's a number of things that the Mtn West is already withholding from those schools that are departing. They're just the legal battle between the departing schools from the Mtn West and the conference itself just has just a new layer added just earlier today.
Well, I would need to look more into this. I don't want to make too many sweeping statements because I'm not a lawyer, and so I cannot make any fast opinions on legal matters. But I would imagine when you're talking about withholding the money, like all these schools owe the Mtn West money. They owe them an exit fee. And I think that's the Mtn West's way of basically being like, hey, we're going to take this money and that's basically going to go toward your exit fee. At least I imagine that would be the logic and, some of the legal basis for that is that's kind of their assurance because otherwise, these schools are trying to sue them over these exit fees. But the Mtn West is saying, well, if you're not going to pay us the money, we're just going to not pay you certain amounts of money. And that would go toward that. At least again, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I would need to double check there. This isn't an area that I'm an expert in at all. I don't even know if I call myself an amateur at this point. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think the departing schools really have much of a leg to stand on here. Like maybe with the addition of Grand Canyon, but that seems to have maybe come together after it. I need to double check. Did that happen after the official notice of departure? Because that's when they lose their voting rights and all that.
Right. And
so that may be where if they did that last second because of that, again, maybe it's a bit of a scummy move. You can maybe argue that. Rob Nielsen wasn't super happy about it, although even he said that like the Mountain West has done a pretty good job trying to accommodate that addition as late as it was. Whereas Jared Calhoun wasn't too torn up about it. It's another good program that he's going to get to face. Granted, they didn't have to go through the last second scramble of potentially rearranging all their travel, which is where damages could potentially come in. But if what Rob Nielsen said is, we don't even have to check if what he heard, take his word for it if it was true, because we can see the schedules, they weren't really altered that much. So saying millions in damages,
what's being withheld from the college football playoff and travel reimbursements and stuff, that there could be a claim there.
Yeah, but it depends.
It's not about voting rights. Yeah. It's about you're still a conference member. You still are full rights to earn what you rightfully earn and should be reimbursed for what you rightfully should be reimbursed for.
Yeah, it just depends if there's precedent. And again, this is if it's the logical through line. Again, I need to double check. And if the logical through line of the Mountain West is we're withholding this money and that goes toward your exit fee, that if that logic is there, if there's precedent for it, then perhaps the Mountain West might very well get away with it. Otherwise,
then change the exit fee, which they haven't changed.
Yeah, well, then it's like you owe less for the exit fee, and so you eventually have to pay less down the line. But if there's a structure for the exit fee, then maybe that's some sort of breach of contract, or again, they use words like fraudulence and all that. Again, it's an area where I'm walking on thin ice trying to explain things here, but it just. I'm getting tired of all these lawsuits getting thrown around, and especially because you get a bunch of people who don't know anything about legal stuff trying to make sweeping claims about, Mountain West is definitely going to win and Pac-12 is going to have to pay everything, and others saying the Pac-12 schools are going to pay nothing because the Mountain West is being stupid. And it's like, it's going to be a legal battle. I don't know exactly how it's going to get settled because I feel like well, at least I thought there was going to be a settlement, but then arbitration didn't work. So maybe
mediation. They tried mediation for a couple of months. Apparently, it went nowhere. And then when this announcement came out, that the Grand Canyon would be joining, that was like the sure sign that this mediation had fallen apart.
Yeah.
And so this report, again, according to The Athletic, saying that this suit goes into more detail about the Grand Canyon situation, saying, when they moved up their addition to the Mountain West by a full year, the three departing schools, again, quoting from the article, concluded that Nevarez and the Mountain West were lying and had a plan to covertly admit Grand Canyon for the 2025-26 school year. When Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State gave their resignation notices to the league in late May, they relinquished their voting rights and could no longer try to block a move. And then on July 8th, Mountain West announced that Grand Canyon would, in fact, join immediately. And then so it goes on further, like part of their complaint is that there's potential impacts with travel, logistics, changing schedules, budgets had already been finalized for hotel and travel, and adding a new member is going to affect conference tournament seating, potential tournament bids. And so there's some that they're trying to project what losses could look like, although they're not real just yet. But it certainly has thrown a major wrench into what you had planned for this academic year, which is now starting to have some new conference member you have to try to fit in and figure out how that's going to work. And so,
but I'm just going to say this. They will pay more in legal fees than they will for whatever adjustments they had to make for their schedule.
Agreed. But I think to some degree, too, you have to point out some of these things and throw it all out on the table to say, look, some of this stuff we can, in settlement, we can toss that out. We'll agree to dismiss this, but these are some of the issues that we still need to get to. So it's part of a negotiating tactic, but it's clear both sides are still unhappy with each other.
No, and justifiably so on each side, where obviously there's a lot of hurt feelings. Neither side is playing nice. Mountain West was not playing nice with the way they added Grand Canyon, and waiting for the Pac-12 schools to officially lose their voting rights to then add them last second. That was a dirty tactic, but the Pac-12 didn't play nice with the way that they're filing all these lawsuits over poaching penalties that they technically agreed to, and the way that they're taking only part of the Mountain West. So neither side is playing nice, and both Pac-12 believers and Mountain West believers both seem to think that their side is the moral and just one. And I'm sitting here being like, can't we just all get along? But you can't get along in college sports anymore.
Not when millions and millions of dollars are at stake.
Yeah, and it's like every time another one of these comes out, it's like, my dad was right. I should have been a lawyer.
All right, let's get to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321 for those who want to chime in. By the way, 2409 sent this in. We didn't get a chance to get to it earlier, but the Red Zone was developed so gamblers could watch the scores on a lot of games at the same time.
And we talked about Red Zone at the end of the first hour, and sorry for not getting to this text for a long time.
Yes.
But yeah, that checks.
7854, will the lack of open practice help or hurt opening game attendance? I don't think it'll hurt too much. I think there's going to be a lot of interest, like people want to come and see for themselves what this team really is going to look like. And generally, even in Utah State's worst seasons, the opening game was always well attended because it was just something that you did, something that the students would show up for. Well, what's this year's team going to look like? Are we going to have a team? And by the fourth quarter, in some of those years, you're like, no, we're just here for the social aspect now.
Yeah, basically. I can see the logical through line of it helping and hurting, or hurting. Where, I don't know if it would help. It's just so much that it either hurts or won't hurt. Because as you said, it's typically been good in any given year. Whether there's anticipation the team's going to be good, or whether there's whether there's not anticipation of the team being good. There's at least that hope that they'll be good, so they show up to the home opener. So it's not going to help. I mean, maybe there's some people that I don't know who's buying a ticket because they didn't see the team in the offseason. Like, there's fans that are planning on attending the first game, and then there's the ones who aren't. The only ones whose decision might be swayed is there might be people who are like, well, tickets are more expensive this year. Maybe I'll just watch it at home. I could see that.
Or wait and see.
Yeah, or wait and see, that kind of thing. But to me, I don't think it will hurt, but there's a world in which I could see that happening. But I don't think it'll be drastic. It just may end up trimming off. Like if there were a ton of anticipation and they had been building up this team, like the way Jared Calhoun's doing with his team, they're going to have pretty good attendance early on with how much he's hyping this team and trying to get people involved. So you're not going to sell out the first game. At most you're going to have like 20,000. So you're kind of hurting yourself, and maybe that you're not going to get as many as you could, but I don't think it's going to hurt. So there's your overly long explanation to that.
9952, before we hit another timeout. The legality issue could be deadlines for the Mountain West to pay the reimbursements. Technically, that revenue should offset expenses.
Yeah, the whole thing about the withholding the money. It sounds bad, like because some of the Pac-12 schools were trying to throw mud at the Mountain West by saying they're withholding wellness funds for athletes and trying to make a villain out of the Mountain West. And perhaps that's justified. Again, I'm not fully aware of the logistics and the legalities behind all these different payments that are going back and forth between conferences. If that is an unjustified way of kind of collecting on the exit fee, then the Pac-12 schools would have a case. And that would be a really scummy thing of the Mountain West if, again, they're unjustifiably withholding these funds. But if that's not necessarily uncommon practice, if that's something that schools have done before, because like they were kind of doing it to San Diego State back in 2021, like that was something they're going to do. They're going to start withholding payments to them. They said they were going to do that, and then San Diego State they were like, wait, hold on a second. They kind of backed out of it. And the Mountain West is just following that same playbook. So it's just a matter of, is that standard practice or not? Because if it's not, you have a case. If it is, then this is just a bunch of lawyers getting paid.
Yeah, or is it legally enforceable?
Yeah.
All right, so another quick timeout here in the Full Court Press. We'll kind of get back on our planned, scheduled topics. But that was big news, some breaking news that happened just this afternoon affecting Utah State and the Mtn West Conference. But again, this new lawsuit filed by those three member institutions, Boise State, Colorado State, Utah State, against the Mtn West, and specifically aiming Gloria Nevarez for fraudulent activity with the Grand Canyon edition that happened, which they allege behind closed doors and only announced once they lost their voting rights, and moving it up a full year. But also claiming that the conference has been withholding money that should be due to some of those schools based on some of the things that they did with bowl games and appearance in the college football playoff. So Mtn West Conference still dealing with a big headache with those schools trying to leave for the Pac-12. Quick timeout. We'll be right back here on the Full Court Press.
Hi, it's Emily, and here at Serenoni, we believe everyone deserves the perfect blanket. That's why we offer a wide variety of sizes and fabrics, from our softest minky to cozy lush, breathable bamboni to textured waffle. So you can find the perfect fit for babies, teens, grandparents, and everyone in between. Established in 2006 right here in Logan, come visit us and find the perfect blanket at our store on 10th West next to iFit. Serenoni, wrapped in comfort, gifted with love.
Hello, Cache Valley. Did you know the Sportsman on Main in downtown Logan has bike and tube rentals? That's right. The Sportsman has kids' bikes, bikes for cruising around town, hardtail mountain bikes, and full suspension electric bikes for rent. If you haven't ridden an e-bike, you are missing out on so much fun. We can even give you ideas where to ride. If you need to rent a tube or many tubes for Bear Lake, Hiram Dam, or the Narrows in Idaho, we have those too. Come to the Sportsman on Main in downtown Logan for your summer bike and tube rentals. Tons of parking in the back.
Les Olson IT structured cabling is second to none. Tired of old and inefficient cabling? Have an upgrade or remodel planned? Building a new network from the ground up? We offer the very best in low voltage cabling installation, including data, phone, fiber optic, and more. Ask us how to get your free consultation today.
Les Olson IT.
Slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning wants you to feel the love as they give away and install 5 new furnace and air conditioners to families in need. Only a few more weeks to get these nominations in. Go to mtnvalleyhvac.com. Just click on the Feel the Love tab. Now, they're going to be donating full HVAC system, equipment, materials, installation services. But they want to give it to a family in need. So you got to nominate those families who could use it. Nominations open through August 31st. Again, mtnvalleyhvac.com. So we talked about quarterbacks who are ranked in different tiers, according to it was the Athletic who put that together earlier in the week. But as is prone to happen this time of year, there are others who are putting together different tiers of rankings. ESPN recently has done this. But, Jason, you've taken that a step further and just looked at combining the schools in the Mountain West for their various different levels of success for basketball and football.
Yeah, basically trying to see, like, of the two big sports, the ones that bring value, the ones that have the most eyeballs. Could maybe combine this into every sport, but I don't have quite enough time to put all that together. And I was like, I made a tier list of all the teams, like who's in tier 1, who's in kind of the middle. It was a little tricky figuring this out because, like, you have some that are like good in one sport, good in the other. Some are good in both. Some are bad in both. But I create a bit of a tier list, and if you agree, disagree, I think some of you might disagree with where I put Utah State. But let's start with what I call Tier 1. This is you're great in both. You're good in both football and men's basketball. And that is two teams. That's Boise State and San Diego State. Where when I went through all these teams and I ranked them by their win, and this is all since 2013, I should specify. Like the time that I was measuring is since 2013. And in terms of win percentage, in terms of average SP plus rating, in terms of average win percentage in basketball, average Ken Palm, like those are the four kind of metrics I was using. They were first or second. Boise State or San Diego State, they were first or second in all those categories. Boise State, they're first in football. San Diego State's first in basketball. And then flip that. Surprisingly enough, Boise State second in basketball. That surprised me a little bit. I would have thought Utah State was there. But despite the fact that Boise State has fewer conference championships than Utah State and New Mexico in that time, they've just been consistently good. And consistently good enough that I think it's just, that's kind of your tier 1 where it's like these two teams are great. They're consistently great. They have multiple conference titles in both sports. Something that I don't think anybody else can say. So to me, it's like you put them, those have been your two best teams of this kind of modern Mountain West era. Then you go to tier 2, and this is your teams that are pretty good in both. Sometimes elite, but they're at least pretty good most of the time. This is where you find Utah State. Yeah, Utah State and Colorado State in this, where they've won conference. I don't know if Colorado State's won a conference title in football, but they've won them in basketball. Utah State's won conference titles in both. I think if Utah State hadn't had quite as many mediocre years, where like they have like 4 or 5, like 6-win seasons, and they have a season where they went like 1-4, 1-5, the COVID year. They go 4-8 last year. If they hadn't had those years, they probably would have gotten into tier 1. But they're really solid in both. Again, they have, I think, other than actually, I have San Diego State and Boise State have won multiple conference titles in both sports. And I think it's just Utah State and Fresno State that have won a conference title in both sports since 2013. So Utah State's still in fairly rare company in the Mountain West, but I've got them in tier 2. Great in basketball. Honestly, the numbers kind of inflate. If you asked me if Boise State was really the second best team in basketball since 2013, I'd say no, but the numbers say they technically kind of are. I'd say Utah State's been the second best. But
yeah, I would agree with that.
So I got Utah State there. Then in tier 3, this is they're good in one, but they probably struggle in the other. So you got Fresno State, good in football, kind of mediocre in basketball, except for the one year they were good in basketball. They got a conference title. Nevada, good in basketball, largely bad in football. Air Force, great in football, bad in basketball.
Yes.
New Mexico, great at basketball. Had a bit of a down year, and that kind of pushed them down a little bit. But good in basketball, bad in football. So kind of balancing out there, having a bit of fun with those tier lists. Then you got your tier 4. This is they're not consistently good in anything. There's been some bright spots. For instance, UNLV, they're in this tier. I don't know if they won a conference title in either football or basketball in this time span. No,
but they've had moments in either sport where they've been interesting.
Yeah, their football team's had some moments. Their basketball team's good-ish. San Jose State's in this tier, and they've won a conference title in football, but consistently not good enough. In Wyoming, they're decent in football, but at best they've been decent in basketball. The one year they were good. I think they won a conference title in basketball, but again, just not consistently good. Bright spots at times, but just not consistently good at either sport. So that's kind of my quick tier list there. I thought it was a fun exercise. Wasn't sure if I wanted to make it into a full-on article, but it's one of those off-season exercises. Hey, I've got all these numbers laying around. I spent all of May and June compiling a bunch of data on what all the teams in the Mountain West have been doing for the last 12 years. I was like, well, what if I threw them together? So if you agree, disagree, I don't know, does anyone on the text line disagree with me?
So far, no points either way.
So perfect agreement, because I wasn't sure how fans would feel like me putting Utah State in the second tier. But to be honest, I think, again, if it hadn't been for some mediocre years in football, they'd be up there in that tier 1. But I think just with San Diego State being as elite as they have, you get to the Final Four in basketball. Boise State's been in the college football playoff. Utah State's not done either of those things, so it's hard to put them in that same tier, even though they've been great. Like, Utah State has been one of the best teams in the Mountain West in this most recent era, since 2013. That is undeniable. And if you feel like they're in that tier one, I honestly wouldn't argue, because like when you look at the combined win percentage, if you set the cutoff line at 60% wins and combined, they're one of 3 teams that have done that. And San Diego State and Boise State aren't that much higher if you just look at combined win percentage. Like, Utah State's not really that far behind in either. So that's going to make the Pac-12 era interesting for them, because they're pretty much on par with those teams, and they're going to be trying to, they'll be competing in a tougher conference, but they could potentially grow even more.
Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff there, looking back at the years for Utah State in the Mountain West and where they rank in their peers in some of the highest profile sports. Quick time out here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, we had to bump this because we had the breaking news earlier, but we need to get back to our top 25 Aggies for 2025. We'll reveal who's next on our list here on the Full Court Press.
Hey, so I'm going to ask you a question and then give you some time to think about the answer. Who do you know that seems checked out, distant, off? Did someone come to mind? Great. Think of a way you can check in with them. Maybe a text, a call, or a visit. It doesn't have to be something big, because just trying can be a big deal. Connection can prevent suicide.
Let's connect. Come be part of Ignite the Light, August 7th at the Cache County Fair and Rodeo. Let's help shine a light on mental health and suicide prevention with professional resource help. Guest speaker JT Laybourne at 7 and a free concert beginning at 8. Your connection matters. Bring mental health and suicide prevention to light. August 7th at the Cache County Fair and Rodeo. Google Ignite the Light for details.
When grid failures and severe weather cause power outages, your business might take a hit, or at home, you could lose your refrigerated food storage. Generac Standby Power Solutions help ensure an uninterrupted power supply. Generac is the #1 brand of standby generators. Get yours today from Golden Spike Electric, your trusted source for safety and security. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Hi, this is Robbie with LSS Insurance. If you're about to turn 65, the Medicare phone calls, mailers, and emails can be unreal. Out-of-market telemarketers simply do not understand Utah, Idaho, or your individual situation. We have real answers and real solutions with local help. At LSS Insurance, we are your health insurance specialists. Call us 752-9493. Having local help makes all the difference, and there's no cost to you. Call 752-9493 or visit LSSINS.com.
Breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Cache Valley's biggest garage sale is coming up on Saturday, September 6th. It'll be held at the parking lot at the Eccles Ice Arena in North Logan. Great opportunity to sell some of your stuff and put it in front of a bunch of people all in one spot. Go reserve your space today at Cache Valley's biggest garage sale. Just Google that term. You'll find the right links. Cache Valley's biggest garage sale coming up on September 6th.
If you see me selling radio equipment there, don't tell Eric.
You're just trying to make a quick buck. All right, our latest player that we want to highlight in our top 25 Aggies for 2025. This is the now 4th player that we will be highlighting so far. And we'll let the big voice guy do the introductions.
The Cache Valley Media Group's annual Top 25 Aggies continues today with another player reveal. The next player on the list is offensive lineman Jake Eichorn. Eichorn stands 6'5" and weighs 310 pounds. He's a native of Utah, having grown up in Beaver, Utah. He earned 2A MVP honors at Beaver High School and helped them win back-to-back state championships. For his college career, Eichorn first signed with Weber State, playing 2 seasons with the Wildcats before transferring to BYU and playing 2 seasons there. In 2024, Eichorn appeared in 9 games for the Cougars.
Yes, getting to an offensive lineman for the Utah State Aggies. Jake Eichorn, a transfer for Utah State, who spent time in the state of Utah and a few other spots, but now donning an Aggie uniform. But this is a big guy, and I think that there's a real opportunity for him to have an impact on that offensive line.
Yeah, interesting fact, he was part of the team that beat Utah State, the Weber State team that beat Utah State back in 2022. I believe, because then he goes to BYU after that. It's been the 2023-24 season, 2023 and 2024 seasons with the Cougars, but was at Weber State before that. But yeah, this is a guy I think who can make an impact, who I think could be a starter. He's going to be, I think, fighting for one of those starting spots. I think on the interior offensive line, I don't think he's a tackle. I need to double check if he played tackle, actually. But I think he's a guy who will very likely be a rotation player on the offensive line for the Aggies.
Yeah, I really like his size. 6'5", 310 pounds. He's from the state of Utah. He's from Beaver. And as we mentioned, we spent time at Weber State and at BYU. So he understands the culture of what Utah State's all about and can help. He's an experienced guy with a lot of years behind him, number of snaps that he's been able to be on the field, whether it was at Weber State or at BYU. That does make a difference in getting onto the field and helping your team have an impact.
Yeah, and I think he'll have an impact one way or another. Like I said, I think he can start, but if he doesn't start, he's going to be playing a role on that offensive line. Playing again, he could probably play several different positions. I think he could play the interior offensive line. That's where I think he'll be. But he's big and tall enough that I don't know if you really need to. You can probably throw him in a tackle there for a few snaps if you really need a guy. And then obviously on special teams as well, he'll be in there with the big hogs protecting field goals and whatnot.
Yes, so that's the latest player that we're highlighting for the upcoming 2025 football season. Last couple of minutes on the show here. It's a Thursday, which means we try to predict what will happen with Pick 6.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way.
It's the Full Court Press Pick 6.
Ever since March Madness ended, I am so bored.
6 things we think will happen this weekend.
I don't know how the whole betting thing started, but it's fun.
All right, I won last week. So I get to decide if I go first or you go first.
You're not going to do this very often.
No. You know what? I'm going to let you go first.
All right. So I've got some NFL lines. We got NFL preseason. Officially got underway with the Hall of Fame game, but we've had a gap. Now we're getting into some games. There's one going on right now.
Game's going on right now, actually.
Two games. Yeah, Ravens, Colts, and Eagles, Bengals. They're going on right now. But I've got a couple different games in mind in my line. So starting with my New England Patriots, Drake May is supposed to be playing in their preseason opener against the Commanders. Over-under on his pass attempts, 4.5.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the under. And then just by the same line, but I've got Jordan Love in his preseason opener. I should have double checked whether or not he was going to play. Eric's going to look it up.
Well, I'm going to see who they are playing.
They're playing the Jets.
The Jets.
But yeah, Jordan Love, his pass attempts in this game, over under 4.5.
For him, I'm going to take the under.
I'm going to take the under as well.
Okay.
And then RSL, they're getting back to MLS play. They're taking on New York Red Bulls. Total goals in this game by both teams, over under 2.5.
I'll take the under.
I'm going to take the over.
All right. Major League Baseball, big rivalry series this weekend. Cubs are in St. Louis taking on the Cardinals.
You said big rivalry series. I thought you meant Red Sox and Yankees.
Matthew Boyd, strikeouts on Friday. He plays for the Cubs.
Look, hey, I had to tell me that.
5.5.
I'll take the under.
I'll take the over. The combined margin of victory for the Milwaukee Brewers over the New York Mets in their 3-game series this weekend, 7.5.
I'll take.
So it's the run differential.
Yeah, the run differential. Yeah, I got you. I'm going to take the under.
Okay, I'll take the over. Then my third line, Kyrese Rowan, former Utah State wide receiver, turning some heads in Denver for the Broncos. Yards on Sunday when the Broncos face the 49ers. So how many yards will Kyrese Rowan receive or be total yards? He may be used in return or something else.
Just all-purpose yards.
All-purpose yards. 10.5.
I'll take the over.
Okay, I'll take the under. And then my tiebreaker, similar, Jalen Royals. He is turning heads in Kansas City. So how many yards will he have on Sunday when they play the Cardinals? I've set his line at 20.5.
I'll take the over on that as well.
Okay, then I'll have the under.
All righty, there we go. That's pick 6.
And we'll tally it all up on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tally it up on Monday.
That's true. You will tally it. There's no we here. This is Jason doing the legwork.
Eric used to do it. That was his thing, and then I stole it from him.
Yes,
so.
I happily yielded.
He also yielded. Maybe that's the secret. Whoever tallies it up wins more.
Maybe that's what's going on. Ajay always accused me of fudging the numbers. Although I never did, but now maybe I should be suspicious. That's what's going on.
Yeah, now that Eric can't fudge the numbers anymore, he can't win. The secret's out.
8003 on that topic. If Eric is on a losing streak in pick 6, he will go back to cheating.
Yes. Eric's going to start tallying these up instead of me, and suddenly he'll start winning.
I'm excited for this weekend. I mean, there are some interesting baseball matchups this weekend, but more so about the NFL, where we have some former Aggies, especially the newer ones, with Kyrese Rowan, Jalen Royals. Both of them have been getting attention.
Still now. Isn't White? Or is he going by Rowan?
Well, he's listed as Kyrese Rowan.
On the NFL roster?
Yes.
Did he go back to Rowan?
I went back to Rowan. Oh. But it is Kyrese White for those who may have seen his jersey last year. Same guy. But, excited to see what both of them do in their NFL debuts this weekend in the preseason games.
Yeah, definitely need to watch. Kyrese Rowan. He's not very high on the depth chart, to be perfectly honest. He's a little low, but fighting. Again, he can make big strides. It's only the first depth chart, so try and fight. And I think for him, realistic expectations are try and get a spot on the practice squad. We saw Devin Tompkins go that route, and he was able to be an NFL player for a couple of years. He got real snaps, a lot on special teams, but even caught a few passes. And I think Kyrese can have a similar path. I think that I'd love for him to just make the 53-man roster, but I got to be realistic. But I think that is a path that he can take and that he can be successful at. He is a good player that I think can thrive in the NFL, despite the fact that he wasn't spectacular in college. He has the tools to be good in the NFL. We see those guys all the time. They're like, they didn't do anything in college, and suddenly they're spectacular in the NFL, or at least good in the NFL. But yeah, Jalen Royals, he'll be interesting because he's already fought his way to the top of the depth chart, and he's kind of earned that spot. And we'll see what he can showcase now on an NFL field for the first time.
Unfortunately, neither of those games are on a national broadcast. Chiefs and Cardinals, they kick off at 6 in Arizona, and then the Broncos and 49ers in Santa Clara, that kicks off at 6:30. But neither of those games are set to be nationally broadcast. Packers and Jets, that is slated for a 6 o'clock kick on the NFL Network.
Yeah, but it's the one I don't need to watch Jordan Love in the preseason. You want to watch Jordan Love, but
and apologies, those games are Saturday, not Sunday.
Oh yeah, the 2 Sunday games are the Dolphins, Bears, Saints, Chargers.
Yes, apologies.
So yeah, Saturday, 6 o'clock. At least if you can't watch it, keep an eye on your Gamecast and see how Kyrese Rowan and Jalen Royals are doing, and check in on the 15 snaps that Jordan Love plays.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Have a great one, everybody. We'll be back at it tomorrow.
Sports Talk Radio, KLGN Logan, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, and online at 1069thefan.com.